I'll open the meeting, the August meeting of the New York State Cemeteries Board. It's our second in-person meeting. One of our commissioners, board members, Jill Faber, is in Poughkeepsie and remote, but that area was noticed. So that means we now have a quorum coming here, but all members are present. Before I go through the introductions, just remind people that the WebEx rules still apply. That if you're speaking, please identify yourself. There are some particular rules for those of you who are lobbyists about identifying yourself. This is a pretty short meeting. We will have an opportunity for public comment. And I think we're going to executive session. If we do go into executive session, we will not close the meeting. We'll adjourn to executive session, conduct our business, and then come back out to report on any actions that were taken or not taken in executive session, and then adjourn the meeting. So I think that's everything I needed to get out there. I'm Mark Pattison, representing Secretary of State Rossana Rosado and Chairman of the Board. Tom?
Tom Ford, representing Dr. Howard Stuck.
And I'm Jill Faber, representing Attorney General Letitia James.
Good to have you. Okay, so I think that's it. We have minutes of the previous meeting. Again, the July meeting was a pretty short meeting. I was not present, so I can't comment on them. But is there anybody that has any suggested changes, amendments, or objections to the minutes as mailed? No? No? Okay. So I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as distributed to the board. A second? I'll second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. We have Rob Vanderblis, who's our current counsel, and is going to give a report on legislation and regulation to the degree there is a report on legislation and regulations. Rob, can you give us your report?
Of course. Thank you, Mark. This is Rob Vanderblis, counsel to the division and the board. I have no legislative update because the legislature is out of session. In terms of a regulatory update, we are anxiously awaiting the conclusion of the regulatory review unit's review of the proposed regulations. And once that's complete, we should be able to publish a notice of proposed rulemaking. Short and sweet this month. Thank you, Mark.
Right. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for our counsel? Things to add? No. Okay. Thanks, Rob. And I'll note that Rob looking good on vacation. So
thank you, Mark.
Taking his time. Appreciate it. We have a division report from Lewis. Lewis, would you like to give your report?
Yep, just pulling it up right here. So I had hoped to report that we had forms ready to go and be used. We are not quite there. We're very, very close to being there. We are just making some final edits before our next meeting. We should have on our website and able to be used by cemeteries forms for applications for columbarium and mausoleum projects and permanent maintenance loans, along with supporting schedules. Not too far behind that one is a form for major alterations, which I think would cover through many of the major types of most common types of applications we get. The only other one would be retort replacement, and that one is in the pipeline. That's really common, is in the pipeline. Not quite there yet, but it's in the pipeline and moving right along. I don't have the details in front of me, so let me go just mention that we have issued the guidance. We issued guidance on witnessing electronic signatures. We issued that, I believe, on July 30th. And that's out there. I'm glad to say we're not getting many questions about this. So either that means that people are just doing whatever the heck they want, ignoring everything we say, or more hopefully, that we gave very clear guidance, and people are able to follow that, and that's going on. Again, the real focus of our guidance is how do you witness things remotely, and then moving into a little bit into best practices for witnessing, for witnessing in general. I know one question I've gotten precisely one question about this since we approved it, and that question is about we recommend. I want to make this very clear. We're saying that funeral directors should, as a matter of good practice, get identification from people to make sure they are who they claim they are. I think that's probably slightly more of a concern when you're dealing with people remotely than it is when you're dealing with them in person, but I suppose that concern's always there. I got a question saying, well, should we send, if we're making a copy of someone's ID, should we send it to the crematory? The answer to that question is we would prefer that you do not. There's personal identifying information there. Funeral directors will have a lot of personal identifying information about the deceased and the next of kin that a crematory typically does not have. And because it's generally a good idea to limit the exposure of personal identifying information, we like to keep it that way. So if you're a funeral director and you do make a copy of someone's ID, and it seems like a very good idea, don't send it along with the cremation authorization. There's no need to. The last thing I wanted to note is that we received back in March, we went back and forth with them a little bit, an application from Troy Cemetery, otherwise known as Oakwood Cemetery in Troy, to appropriate a portion of their net appreciation on their permanent maintenance fund, specifically $56,723. To purchase a new backhoe, which they desperately need. We've reviewed that application, and we, on power delegated to us by the board back in the January 2019 meeting, have indicated that we do not object to that application to the extent of $56,723. So, again, just wanted to let you know that that's out there. So that's, we don't get too many of those, but just a reminder that that little piece of the statute is still out there. And we recommend, if you've got a surfeit of gain in your permanent maintenance fund and you're low on cash in a major project that really has to get done, especially one that will make money, reach out to your division accountant about the or call the Albany office about the possibility of doing one of these. I do have one add-on item for the agenda, which I got an update on this after we finalized the agenda. This is just for the board's attention. This is not an action item by any stretch of the imagination. This is a cemetery. This is a report on Willowbrook Park Cemetery Association, which is in Chautauqua County. It's in the city of Dunkirk. We met with their board, division staff, Cindy Craig and Kathleen Richardson met with their board on, I think Cindy was the only one who was there. Kathleen's involved, but I don't know if she was nope, Kathleen was there, sorry, my bad. They met with the board of the cemetery. Essentially, they have two problems right now. The cemetery is actually, as far as we can tell, they're overdue for an audit, but as far as we can tell, they are operating in the black. The problem is their superintendent is going to retire in the not too distant future, and their trustees or their most active trustees at least, don't see themselves continuing for more than 2 years. If they can't find replacements, there's really, because it's in a city, there's no obligation for municipality to maintain the cemetery. So that's obviously a concern if they weren't able to find someone to people to step up and be on the board. We're going to be reaching out to the city and speaking with them to try to help them. We have plenty of lead time on this, which is good. We're going to try to help them reorganize and keep going, but just wanted everyone to know that the board to know that this cemetery is out there, and there could be potential issues down the road that we're going to be trying to work through. Again, I suppose in the context of our proposed rules, they're at some risk of abandonment in that there's no clear path to replacing the trustees right now. That is all I had for this month. Oh, I guess, did I welcome Karen back at the last meeting? I can't remember. Well, we'll welcome her back again anyway. Karen DeYoung has rejoined the division as senior accountant. She went to another agency. She decided she liked us better. I frankly don't know why, but we're obviously very pleased to have her back, and she's already worked wonders in the brand new Buffalo office, somehow intervening with the deities that control HVAC systems to get the air conditioning to start working, which had been an issue for their first few days there. So both for that and for her substantive work for the division, we're very happy to see her back. I'm going to be, Alicia is unavailable, so I'll pause for questions, and I'll move on to the vandalism report.
Before you move to the next one, I just want to sort of go back to the forms, because I think we speak in code sometimes. So if you remember, it's been a very long process, but we went through what was called a lean procedure, which is designed to sort of try to streamline or simplify the way we do business. And the result of that was the idea that we would develop forms that would proactively make sure that cemeteries knew what you were supposed to do before you made an application. Our own self-criticism, and I think generally criticism was that it wasn't clear what you had to do. So there's lots of back and forth, and I don't know what to do. So these forms are designed to very clearly say, here are the things that you need up front, so the cemetery is clear about that, and it's going to, we hope, reduce the amount of time it takes to get information to the board, and it'll be standardized from all applications. So those are part of our goals, and again, it's taking a long time. But we're hopeful that this will be good for cemeteries and good for the board in terms of getting standardized information. We are also looking at ways to additionally streamline our applications because just over time, it's gotten way too big and clunky, and I'm not even sure we can review them properly because 180 pages of stuff is not easily done. So that's another part of this process that would be requiring, in some cases, less cemeteries to provide to us, although some of that stuff is easy to get. But again, try to streamline it so it's a more effective process. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions for Louis.
Yeah, I'll just throw in one more thing on the forms discussion, which is that these are just forms. This is not legislation. This is not rulemaking. We haven't shared the draft forms with the State Association of Cemeteries like we typically do with things we're rolling out, partly because the internal back and forth has been such that having more cooks would just delay things further, but they are just forms. They are theoretically and legally very easy to revise, and I think we're going to learn, I am convinced that we are going to learn that they need to be tweaked once we start using them. No matter what we do to get them right up front, there's no substitute for actual lived usage. So while we're not calling them that, when we do roll them out, hopefully before the next meeting, they are very much going to still be in beta and subject to correction. If anybody says, hey, what about this, what about that, we're of course open to figuring out how to tweak it. I'll also point out that goes even more, obviously, and more importantly, to our board members, because you're going to be the ones reading the applications. And if you look at our things and say, when in the context of one of the new forms, and say, hey, what happened to this? Or, hey, why do I need that? Then we can further tweak them to better reflect what our needs are. But again, that's where we're at with that.
Okay.
I interrupted the
we're
question
at risk of
time.
making a short meeting long, so if we'd like to move on to the vandalism report, we have a report on the.
So there are still, believe it or not, 114 grand and change committed from 2018, 2019, and last year's applications, and 2019, 2020 applications that we have not paid out. Those are cemeteries where for whatever reason, they haven't finished all of the monuments or submitted a proper voucher to be paid. We will be following up on those. We've got 194 grand and change left over from last year's applications approved last year. That is not unusual. The work in some of these applications would still be ongoing through the summer. We will obviously follow up on those as well. This year, we have granted only $227,700.19 in applications. So if you add that all up and compare it to our appropriation, we've got approximately 1.5 million left, which means that if your cemetery is sitting there with hazardous monuments, please give us a call. We can help you with that. We're in a position to help, and that is not always the case. There have been years where cash has been an issue. That's not the case in this fiscal year. So by all means, while we still have a repair season, come on in. I'm going to report on one thing slightly out of order, which is annual reports. We've received 1,346. That's out of a total of just under 1,700. So we only have about 350 cemeteries that still owe us an annual report, but that number is actually slightly lower because there are probably a few of those that are on a fiscal year where their report isn't due yet. And there is also a significant number that have asked us for an extension. I guess I should have put this in the context of annual reports, the division report, but we're just under halfway through our project of calling cemeteries that are delivered to annual reports. The person who's taking lead on that is not going to be at work for a few weeks, so we'll be coming up with a plan B to continue that work, probably starting in September. With people's vacation schedules, I'm a little reluctant to add anything to anyone's docket right now. With that, I think our next order of business, and second to last order of business, is the hazardous monument application. Len,
Did you
wanna
report on how much was collected, Lewis, and all that?
Alicia, I do not have collections here, do I? Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I was looking in the wrong place. Okay, calendar year collections, $566,563 for vandalism, $318,036 for the assessment. In the fiscal year, those are $134,738 and $75,111 respectively. That's not unusual. The bulk of these payments come in the first quarter of the calendar year, which is the last quarter of the fiscal year. Now,
does anybody any board members have any questions of Lewis on the vandalism report? If not, let's move to our application.
Len, you want to take it from here?
Yep, sure. Good morning, Len Breen, Investigator, Division of Cemeteries. We have an application from Oakwood Cemetery in Troy for the repair of 75 hazardous monuments. And their application is very thorough. As usual, they're well versed in this procedure. They've done several of these applications. The dedicated staff is committed to repairing all the monuments. Eventually, I think they'll get there one day to where their goal is to have every monument that is leaning dangerously repaired, so they're all standing upright, and they're well on their way to that because they repair a lot of them on their own. The smaller ones they take care of on their own, and then they come in for applications for the larger ones with us. And so with this application, there's 75 monuments, and I was able to visit the cemetery on June 21st, and I was able to confirm that all 75 are indeed leaning dangerously in need of repair, and I recommend approval for this.
Thank you, Len. Rob, did you have any comments on this application?
Oh, thank you, Mark. My only comment would be is if it is approved by the board, the motion be made subject to the availability of funds.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about this application for dangerous monument repair in the amount of $67,247.97 by Oakwood Cemetery, Troy Cemetery in Troy?
No questions from me.
I'll make a motion to approve the application of the Troy Cemetery or Oakwood Cemetery in the amount of $67,247.97, subject to the availability of funds. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Motion carries, application is approved. Terrific. Okay, Louis, you had a report on Mount Olivet, request for a waiver of proposed penalty.
Yep, so this is going to have to be done partly in executive session. I can do part of it in public session. The cemetery has retained a forensic auditor to look into certain transactions and issues we identified in our own review of the cemetery's finances. We had an initial or a progress call with the auditors on Friday, and I can't. This is still very much, even though we proposed penalties, the scope and extent of the issues here are very much a matter of under investigation by the division. And so I can't address the substance of it. I also would be extremely reluctant to publicly say anything about the substance of a of something where it's still in draft. And we don't have a complete picture yet. The auditors are going back to the cemetery this week sometime, maybe today, and are still looking into some things. Having said that, they have a time frame for their report. They anticipate issuing the report the week after Labor Day, meaning sometime the week of September 7th. And when they issue the report, as is typical, they're going to issue it to the cemetery's management to give them their board to give them an opportunity to respond or address concerns. The target date for issuing a final report, which we will then definitely have access to, is the end of September. To give everybody and to give us enough time to receive that and make recommendations, although I think technically the cemetery's letter objecting to the penalty stops the clock on their need to pay, I'd like to get a motion that we'll extend their time to further respond, further object, or for us to schedule a hearing on the penalties or otherwise consider their request until October 31st. That'll give us time to get their report and discuss it at the October board meeting. Yeah, one thing the auditors noted is that everyone who they've spoken to at the cemetery has been thoroughly cooperative with them on or has seemed thoroughly cooperative with them. One doesn't know what one doesn't know, but everyone has seemed to be thoroughly cooperative with them on working on the audit. So again, that's obviously a good thing.
Okay, does any members of the board have any questions of Louis on this report? I'll make a motion that we extend, that we agree to extend the timeframe for Mount Olivet to respond to October 31st, so that we can have time to receive reports from our the forensic auditor. I don't know if we need to say anything more than that, Louis, do you think? Or Rob, do you have anything else that you think?
Well, that sounds good to me,
Okay.
Mark.
Okay, so I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. The motion carries. Now.
I should add before we go to the rest of this, I am 99 and 44/100% certain that we will not have any further action taken after executive session. I think further discussion of Mount Olivet is the only thing that we have for executive session. And since we've already taken action on that, I don't think there's going to be any different actions. So for anyone who normally sticks around to see what we do, I think you're free to go about your business. If anyone really wants to, if anybody really wants to If you're there in person, just let Mark know. If you're not there in person, shoot me, text me in the chat with your cell number, and I can text you for when we're going back into public session.
No, we still have to figure out how to do this executive session thing, but.
Yeah, I mean, what you're going to do is you're going to actually close this meeting on your end. I will start the executive session. You'll join it just like you joined this meeting. Then when we're done with that, we'll close that meeting and you'll rejoin this one. John Furtado is going to stay from the Department of State is going to stay in this meeting so that the meeting doesn't end, so we can pivot back to it.
Okay. Do we have to mute the line here?
No. You're going to quit out of. No, you're going to quit after you get public comment. When you adjourn for executive session, you're going to actually quit out.
Yeah. Okay, but we have people here, so we either
Then you have to throw
walk
them out.
Okay.
I recommend a cane.
All right, so the next meeting of the New York State Board of Cemeteries is September 14th. And
Correct.
let me ask if there's anyone, members of the public wishing to address the board on matters that are before us or any other matter of interest.
David Fleming from the New York State Association of Cemeteries. I try not to give you too many months off, so I'll just launch right into it. Just a couple of quick points. First, to just publicly commend Oakwood and Troy for just an absolutely fantastic job of trying to bring the cemetery back, and it's just a wonderful historic resource for the region. And it's a pretty amazing place. We encourage folks to visit if they have the opportunity. I want to thank the division for working with NYSAC on the e-signatures guidance. I think it's an important step forward for our crematories and our cemeteries, and making things easier for families, and certainly a lesson that came out of the pandemic. So thank you to them for working with us. The net appreciation discussion that was brief at this meeting, it just brings up an important point, and I think that it might be an opportunity. And I know everyone is very busy, but NYSAC would respectfully request that council and division take another look at the guidance on net appreciation. One of the reasons, as Mr. Polishuk indicated, that there aren't a lot of cemeteries that utilize it, is that a very short law resulted in page upon page of instructions and forms to fill out. Many smaller cemeteries who may have large trust funds and have very little operational funds are just not in a position to be able to fill out the form. They don't have the expertise, and frankly, many of them can't afford consultation from an accountant to help them fill out the form. So I would just encourage folks to maybe this might be an opportunity to look at that. And I know you have a lot on your plate, but it's you know, as you're talking about the lean process and looking at ways to address some of these issues, that's something that really stands out to me. I think we worked with the cemetery board. That was an idea that came from the cemetery board where we NYSAC that. And at the end of the day, it's not as simple as we had hoped that it would be. And finally, just on the abandonment regs, I know this is the cemetery board and division have completed their work in council, and it's off and to the executive chamber for review. I would just point out publicly that it's extremely urgent. I realize there are a lot of factors involved, but there are so many cemeteries across upstate New York, particularly in western New York, that are really going to be facing some critical times in the next few months. I think Mr. Polishuk's comments about this one particular cemetery within city limits, that's just one example that we're really concerned about. And I think the best part of what is being proposed by the board and the division is this early action, try to give some lead time so that we can try to work with the division and the board and try to stop some of these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We concur. I'm expecting we'll get a response back, but it's moving out of our hands.
I mean, bear in mind,
Okay.
half of what's in the rulemaking is stuff we already do as a matter of practice.
Yes, I think if I could respond to that, I think one of our bigger concerns is we want to have something finalized that we can then advocate with municipal organizations like NICOM and Association of Towns and get educated with their members to be proactive about engaging with these cemeteries. We can do that now and we do it, but there's no, we want to follow the process that's being outlined.
Makes sense.
Yep. Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board on matters before us or any other matter of interest? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment section. We will close this meeting, and I'll make a motion to move to executive session to discuss.
Mark, I'm going to get out of here to start the meeting.
Okay, but I want to make sure we make a motion to go to executive session to discuss Mount Olivet. This is, I believe, potential litigation matters made the subject of an executive session. Is that right, Rob?
Yes, Mark, to discuss litigation.
Do I have a second to move to executive session?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion
Aye.
carries. We'll be back out to report on any actions we might have taken and to adjourn the meeting. Thank you for your time and attendance, and we'll see you in a little bit. So we are out of executive session. I can report that no action was taken as a result of our discussions around Mount Olivet. And I will now make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Tom, you're my BFF. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jill, good seeing you. And
Good seeing you
we'll
all.
get all the kinks worked out. But so this kind of worked, right? So
I think so.
Yeah, we had for some reason we had the wrong meeting at the outset. I don't know why.
well, they came down to set up to turn us on to WebEx, but not to dial in. So they didn't know that when they did it. So we just needed to we need to be able to iron that out and iron
Okay.
out. Right? It just opened up WebEx, but unless people were on the same meeting, you got it.
Actually, I think I know what happened. I'll explain it to you when we're not broadcasting.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. Alicia told us we'd have to do that, right?
Okay. Good enough.
Okay. Motion adjourned has been made. Thank you all. We'll see you in September, as the song goes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.